Hello, this is Dwayne Golden, and today's training is going to be a bit different. And it's one I don't want you to miss. If you've never seen any of my trainings as it relates to crypto and doing business, you don't want to miss this one. And in fact, we are excited to do this for our people at Ingreso Cybernetico. But no matter what you do related to crypto, if you trade Forex, if you do your own thing, I want to break down in the simplest terms that I can what this whole halving is about and why you don't want to be sleeping. You were asleep before. You don't have to be asleep this time. So, on behalf of anyone that watches this, I want this to be an absolute blessing for you and your family's future. Okay? So, we're going to talk today about the halving. What is this thing of Bitcoin halving? What's it about? How can it impact you? If you know nothing about Bitcoin, if in fact you just heard of it, you just got started with your own business, whether it's with Ingreso Cybernetico or not, whatever it is that you're doing, how can you leverage it? That's what this webinar is all about. And then, or I'd say this training, then, of course, for our people in Ingreso Cybernetico, now you will see the great value of 100% and not get lucky Bitcoin, but earn it and you be ready for what you may have missed the last time. Some of us missed the first halving, but we didn't miss the second one. And certainly won't miss the third. You don't want to miss the third or the fourth, okay? So, yes, you don't know what I'm talking about, but take a look at my screen as we prepare to talk about it. What is the Bitcoin halving? What is this halving thing all about? Well, I'm going to break it down, and here, I'm not going to go into complex terms. I will show some visuals, but I'm not going to do it the way a lot of our more intellectual, complex people do it because the masses need to know, and the masses won't understand most of what's being talked about. So even though I say halving, during the time I'm talking about it, you're going to know what halving means, right? So don't be alarmed about anything. So the first thing I want to share with you is that it's something that occurs approximately about every 4 years. And it's not pinpointed to a specific date every 4 years, but that's about the amount of time it takes for a certain process to take place that I will talk about in a bit. What else? Well, we've learned from the history that just knowing the history without knowing anything about Bitcoin per se or never participating with it, knowing the history and its patterns could equip you and prepare you for leveraging it so that your finances look different. Some of you, just because of the things I'm telling you today, you will reach 7 figures or multiple 7 figures for the first time in your life. Others of you, because you didn't miss the last time, you will reach 8, 9, or 10 figures. No exaggerations. But we're going to find out how. So, as I go to the next slide, I've had several of you ask me, can I read the slides instead of just talking through them? Because I don't like to read when I talk. I like to just talk. But I need to read so it could be clearer. Between my accent and how fast I talk, I promised in this specific training that I will do that. So, what's it all about? Well, we know that it happens about every 4 years, and then through its history, there are things that we must certainly pay attention to so we can leverage it. So let's look at the history in writing first. Following the first halving in November 2012, I know you don't know what it is yet. Trust me, you will in a few moments. But following the first one in 2012, Bitcoin's price increased from $2.01. Follow this now. $2.01, right? To about $270.94. Now you have to understand, at $2.01, you could have bought 2,000 or 3,000 of these things, right? And oh my goodness, you could have taken a loan out, a mortgage out in your house just to get those. And watch what happens here. It grew by 13,000% just because of this thing called the halving. Just note this. Here's a tip, and I will tell you what halving is, but here's a tip. Halving reduces the amount of availability. Part of Say's law, right? It reduces the amount of the availability, which increases scarcity, right? So what do you mean? Availability, don't worry, I'm coming down to it. It increases scarcity. The second halving in July of 2016, this is the one that I didn't miss, thank God. At the second halving is when my team and I got started in Bitcoin and created merchant processing at this next halving. Why? Because right at the halving, the Bitcoin price had already gone down to about $164. Watch how interesting this is. Over the next 18 months following that halving, it went up to $20,000. Some of you remember that, right? 20,000. People said it's a bubble. It's a scam. How could it be that high? Don't worry. These are processes, and don't you dare be alarmed, because the volatility that you see, yes, it's extreme in comparison to the US dollar or other currencies. However, the benefits are extreme, and the bottom is higher, right, than the greatest of highs for other currencies. So you don't have to sweat that. What's interesting is, if you pay attention to the history I told you, you will see what that means. Some of us were able to turn in a small amount of our work into millions of dollars following the second halving, because we were there when Bitcoin was worth so little and suddenly rose over the next 16 to 18 months to be more than $20,000. Now, you have to understand something. All of you understand this. During this time frame, CNN, MSNBC, it was not talking about it. Your local news wasn't talking about it. There was certainly, you could count on one hand the number of multi-level marketing companies there were, or home businesses there were, that were doing it. And to this date, you can count on one hand the number of companies that would have started back then that are still around. That's how this is. So it's in its infancy stages. All of you get this. And what's really crazy, it wasn't being traded on the Chicago Mercantile. There was no such thing as Bitcoin futures yet. Now that much of the world's talking about it, during that time, Mark Cuban said it's a scam. And today, Mark Cuban says he's accepting it for you to go to Dallas Maverick games. Delta wasn't accepting it. You couldn't go throughout Canada to a KFC and use Bitcoin. What's really crazy is that now that there's a greater adoption from those powers to be. And I want you to get this now before I get into this third halving, which is where we're approaching, and I want you to know what it means for you. Right now, Bank of America has more patents for blockchain and cryptocurrency than any other bank in the world. Most banks have this stuff. And if you want to know how powerful this is, in 2016 and 17, JP Morgan Chase said that cryptocurrency of all forms are a scam. Stay away from it and run. Now, they have the second most patents for cryptocurrency. Bank of America, one of its patents is to have its own Bitcoin ATM machine, cryptocurrency ATM machine. The world's coming on. They want you to wait and think it's a scam, so by the time you do get started, you'll depend on them for it rather than having your own. That's why I'm doing this training. I want you to understand this value, and I want you to understand what it can and will mean for you. So let's go further. All that being said, what's the halving, Dwayne? Great question. It means you can have as much as you want. No, not at all. Let's go a little further. I'm just having a little fun. So, what's it all about? First of all, it's an event where the reward for mining new blocks is halved. The amount of reward that you get for our miners, there's these miners out there that mine Bitcoin, almost, what that process is. Well, it's mined, and they get a certain amount for their reward for mining that. Now, what's interesting is it means they receive 50% fewer Bitcoins for verifying the transactions. Why? Because they're only going to make so many Bitcoins. There's only going to be so many made. Over 17 million's already been made. They're only going to make 21 million. So the halving allows the process to have some sort of organic pattern where scarcity can exist, even though, watch this now, even though many will say that there's nothing backing it. Well, how will it last? They've all said that. It's here to stay. Cryptocurrency is here to stay. And certainly digital money is not going anywhere. So what's interesting is, even if you don't know what all this means, the patterns that I showed you already and talked to you about already tell you enough to give you your own definition of what it means, especially since we're approaching another halving. And don't worry, I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So they're important events for traders because they reduce the number of new Bitcoins being generated by the network. So now, less Bitcoins being generated, the miners are getting 50% less. Both of those things equal scarcity. And the greater the scarcity, the higher the value. The higher the price, rather. Right? What else? This limits the supply of new Bitcoins, right? So the prices could rise if demand is strong. And each time there's been a halving, the demand has been greater than 10,000% as a result. The first halving, there was a 13,000% increase. The second halving, greater than 12,000% increase. The third halving, projected, was going to blow your mind what is projected. I won't even go there. Okay, but let's take a peek. The next Bitcoin halving is expected to occur in the weeks commencing May 18th. Sometime during that week. Some are saying the 26th. Others are saying the 17th, the 18th. It doesn't matter. When that last block is mined, that point, it's going to reward less and it's going to make less, right? Less will be generated by the network and it's going to pay less to the miner. 50% less. We're going to look at that in a little closer. So it will see the block reward fall from 12.5 Bitcoins to 6.25 Bitcoins. That's the difference in what they'll be paid. Scarcity all over the place. We're going to walk through the origin. And the name of the event was when Bitcoin launched. The date, January 3rd, 2009. Right? Number of blocks, 0 at that point. 50 new, watch this now, 50 new BTC. 50 BTC for the reward. That's good. How many were made by the network? 10,500,000 Bitcoins were made by the network. No problem. 4 years later, or following the first halving, watch this. Instead of 0, 210,000, right? And watch it. Because it's a halving, it's going to be 50% of the reward, which is 25 now. There were 25 Bitcoins for the reward. And half of the amount made by the network, right? 50% less created by the network, which means 5,250,000 Bitcoins. We are interested as we go to the second halving, which took place on July 9th, 2016. I'll never forget this time frame. Watching BTC go up. What's interesting is, did you notice something? It doubled the number, the block number, 420,000. What's interesting is it reduced by 50% the reward and by 50% the amount created by the network, 2,625,000. This is interesting, and we're going to see why. I just want you to see something here. This scarcity is going to be created by this next halving, which is going to change this block's number to 630,000. Don't worry, you don't have to know what all these means. I just want you, don't worry. It's going to make sense in a few minutes when I go to the next slide or the next two slides. 6.25 is what the reward will be for the miners. And they're only going to, the network is going to generate during that time 1,312,500 Bitcoin. Now, I'm not going to go to the fourth halving in 2024 or the fifth halving, right? There's no need for that, which is expected 2028. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next slide so we can make some meaning of this. We're going to look at this on a graph, ladies and gentlemen. What you're going to see here are these round circles. Each one of these are going to represent the peak, the brown circles. The green circles are going to represent the halving. What happens after the halving is going to tell you the percent increase based on the scarcity that occurred. And what that's going to tell you is, on this line, it's going to tell you what the dollar amount is. I know you can't see it, but I'll spell it out for you. Right? I've already told you what the amounts were, but you're going to be able to see that here coming live. Bitcoin's generated. Yay, right? It reaches a peak. Then watch out, after the peak, it kind of resolves itself and settles a bit. Then goes on a run. Halving, the very first halving. Bitcoin grew after the first halving by 13,000%, which made it peak. It went from, watch here now, It went from as low as $2.10 up to $270.94. That's this peak. That's where it peaked. And this takes anywhere from 6 months to 18 months following, but it goes on a run. And then once it does, it corrects and resolves itself. And it goes back down and finds a new low. Each time there's a peak, the new low becomes a greater high. It becomes the new low is drastically higher than the previous low. Okay? So now, we had our halving in 2016, July 2016. And I want you to know something. Bitcoin, by December of 2017, which is about 18 months later, watch how powerful this is, it peaked at $20,000, a little more than $20,000. Now, I want you to see these lines here. The pattern is predicted through these lines to give you a general idea of what is expected, okay? So here is the next halving we're approaching. This is representing May of 2020. As we get closer to May, we see we're dipping, going up, going down. We're getting closer. We're just a couple of months away from that. When this happens, it's expected, right? Some are predicting, just because of the pattern of what Bitcoin has done, for it to go up to over $400,000. Some are saying it will go up high over $100,000 to $250,000, then peak and go down to the new bottom of about $90,000 for one Bitcoin. If you think Bitcoin is difficult to get now, just wait, right? Over the next year or so. We have told you over and over, while you can, get started and then figure it out. You didn't understand why. Some of you were told back then and you missed it. Some of us made millions with little bit of money because we took advantage of what we were told. We are telling you now, don't be foolish. Log in today, get started, upgrade, and be ready. The world's going to need a stable resource. Our company's been around since 2012. Many of the companies people are going to try to sell you into will give you a heyday for a month or so, and then it's going to go away. Log inside, be ready, because people are going to be looking for something stable and trustworthy, and they'll come to you. Don't get caught up in what's happening today and tomorrow. New things pop up all the time, and they didn't just start. New things go out of business all the time, too, if you hadn't heard. But take a look. As we approach May, and Bitcoin's already dipping down it's a little more than 7,000, between 7,000 and 8,000. Oh my gosh. You have to understand, we're getting to a point where you're never going to see it again. You won't. Just like we're not seeing it down in the $100 to $200 range again when it down here. We're not ever, those days are behind us. It's been almost 4 years since Bitcoin has been down to $1,000. Do you not get that? I want you to understand something. You can do something about it. Forget going for the fences. You don't have to own one Bitcoin right now. If you get started with just 0.007 or 0.01 and you work with that, where it's going to take you, it's going to revolutionize what you do for your family. Get started and begin to double it and triple it. Produce. We put up trainings all week long, every day for you guys, so you can do it. Some of you are just professional watchers. I'm telling you, don't let the having cause you to have less. Let the having result in you having more. This is Dwayne Golden, and certainly you can call it a scam. You can make fun of me even. I don't care. All I know is that when everyone told me how crazy I was, all that Bitcoin thing, you're nuts. They were looking and they saw in less than a year what the work that I did turn into millions and millions of dollars. And that can happen for anyone. So I'm telling you, it's not about that. It's about making the right decisions. If you make decisions when everybody else does, right, you're gonna get what everybody else gets. You have to be the kind of person that can make decisions when most people aren't sure and they're waiting around. We're the time in the world where it matters most. And so this is Dwayne Golden. I wish you the best. Take advantage of this having. You could be new, doesn't matter. You can be old, doesn't matter. You could be a person that just like, now I get it. Run with it. You can bank on it. We'll be kicking out trainings here on the regular basis about what you can do to grow your crypto and grow your business. Take care.